Time, 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 time,
Welcome to the Fancy Thinker. I'm Jared, and today I'm going to be doing a review of two books, and I'm going to do a also a slight kind of like a compare and well, more contrast than compare on these two books I recently finished, and so I wanted to talk about uh, difference in style and conception in what the authors were trying to accomplish and what they're trying to convey. And I'll be upfront on it with you. One of these novels I really enjoyed, and the other one not so much. But that's because of personal taste, not because they're good or bad. That will leave up to you. So the the novels in question. Well, the first one is a novel called Orbital by the Samantha Harvey and Les Claire. No, maybe not. Anyways, this book is a short novella. It's 200 pages, so it's not that short of a novella. But it won the Booker Prize as a novel, and this is a novel that is about it's basically about a view of the Earth from space, from a space station, and it describes this view of the Earth, describes the path of the space station, the orbit around the Earth, and how the different viewpoints they get from that. It's got a little map here in the beginning that shows you the orbit of the space station and all the different points of how many times it goes around the Earth, and so it's really descriptive in how that space station goes around and how Earth looks from the space station and the different storms they see and stuff like that, and the different and it also details the different little day to day stuff and the feeling of not being on Earth, what that is kind of like, right? So um, so this book, we talked about this book quite a bit on our podcast, Speculative Speculations, and none of us really enjoyed it all that much. I think we just mostly found it a little boring. The descriptions are nice. There's nothing wrong with them. The descriptions of the earth and stuff like that are quite beautiful in places. And there was a couple of there's a few passages that really stood out as really cool, especially the comparison of this a famous painting where the the painting is of the painter making the painting that he's making, and you're kind of looking in, and that's kind of like how the astronauts felt looking at the Earth, and so there's comparisons like that, and there's nice little bit of philosophical talking about um she at one time she breaks down the history of the universe in a year as if the Big Bang was on January 1st, and then it goes like that all the way up until the year's end when humanity isn't around until the end of December, as a comparative to the time frame we're talking about. And so and she's not the first person to do that. I've seen that elsewhere before, but it's just interesting that this obviously appealed to a lot of people, but there's no plot really at all. There's little glimpses of some of the astronauts and a little bit of glimpse of their character that we get here and there, but it's always omniscient. It's always uh, you never get in somebody's head, so you never get to really know anybody. And like I said, there's no real plot to speak of other than they're up in space looking down. So that was that. The second novel I'm going to be talking about is Conan and the Living Plague. It's the second novel in this collection, Conan City of the Dead, by John C. Hocking. And so there's two novels in here, and I just finished the second one, Conan and the Living Plague. And of course, you're all thinking, how can I put this critically acclaimed book up against a, hack and slash Conan book? But I love this stuff. And yeah, it's not Robert E. Howard. I understand that. And you might be thinking, how can I compare, Robert E. Howard? How can I read this? Robert E. Howard's the the icon, the sword and sorcery father of all, and he was a really good prose writer. But Hocking did a pretty good job with this book. It was fun, and I had a lot of fun with that. And why is that? What did he accomplish? What he set out to do? And I think he did, because if he wanted to entertain the reader, that's exactly what he did with me, at the very least. And so let's take a look at the we're going to take a look at the opening paragraph in both of these books, so that way there's no spoilers. Not that you can't actually spoil this book, there's no plot, but there's plenty to spoil here. So we're going to take a look at the opening paragraph, and see how things go. Just as a side note, this book has tons of plot, and the key thing about writing Conan is that you have to invent new, interesting characters for people to follow, because everybody knows Conan who's going to read a Conan novel. Conan isn't going to change much. He hasn't changed much over near 100 years now, and so he's not going to change much in a novel written these days by a new novelist, or new to Conan novelist. And so that's not the focus of the writer, to change Conan. He's going to give you new characters to focus on, and those characters are going to go through their story arcs and go through their changes. And those are the ones you really got to make interesting, while still keeping all the Conan, traits that Conan has that makes everybody love who Conan is. And so you still got to keep Conan's philosophical meanderings, and you got to keep his stoicism and how he looks at life. But the other characters are what's going to keep you interested in a Conan story, and the plot's got to be exciting. It's got to drive. It's got to move forward. It's got to be a rapid pace. That's a Conan story, and it's got to and hopefully it doesn't have to, but hopefully it will surprise you when things happen. And he pulls off a few good surprises in here that I got a kick out of. So anyways, like I said, we're going to compare the writing here. So we're going to start with Orbital. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully you can read that. All right. This is the very opening of the book. It's Orbit -1. And the next sections go Orbit 0, Orbit 1, or on and on. So Orbit -1. Rotating about the Earth in their spacecraft, they are so together and so alone that even their thoughts, their internal mythologies, at times convene. Sometimes they dream the same dreams of fractals and blue spheres, in familiar faces engulfed in dark, and of the bright, energetic black of space that slams their senses. Raw space is a panther, feral and primal. They dream it stalking through their quarters. So that's the opening paragraph, right? So this is a pretty nice opening paragraph. It it presents a lot of potential for the upcoming narrative. It it tells you, where we are. We're in a spacecraft rotating, above the Earth, um, and there it tells you that the people there um, are kind of unsure about their place in life because that they're not sure how they feel together and yet alone, and they're not, they're convening sometimes, and they're sometimes they're dreaming the same dreams, and this sense of space is primal and feral. So there's this sense that there's something stalking them that's unnatural to what they're used to, and yet there's something calling them back to to the earth, to the blue sphere below, and they're as they're constantly watching it. But it's all from an omniscient perspective. We're not getting into the characters' heads here. We're not even introduced to a character. The um, the the astronauts are just stand-ins. They're not real people to us yet. Later on in the book, we get names and stuff like that, but we still don't get into their heads, and we don't get um, personal with them. This is all told from far away, from an omniscient perspective, and from an observant uh, perspective. It's all being observed, and so the that's how the narrative starts, and that's how it goes throughout the whole thing. She uses a lot of times. It is used in here the the contrasting metaphors that sew together and sew alone, and that's it gets really overused, I think, in this book because things are profound but yet not profound, and it just happens over and over again. Really kind of bugged me a little bit when I was reading it. I was just like, but that's how an omniscient narrator sometimes would be, because it's not, you're not getting a character's opinion, and so you're not getting, you don't have that sense, you don't have that chance to disagree with the character or agree with the character, depending on where your own personal thoughts lie about what a character is doing, because it's not told from their perspective. It's told from far away, detached, observant, which of course that reflects how astronauts may have to be when they're up in space. They have to be they got to do their job. They have to be detached. They have to do report, and they have to do that. So, I mean, it absolutely makes sense for what she's trying to achieve in the book. Just not my cup of tea. All right, so let's move on to the uh, the first paragraph in in this book here. Let me see here. I will get this right here. There we go. Hopefully this will do it. Yes. All right. All right. So this is the first paragraph in the prologue of Conan and the Living Plague. Um, so Adrastus, once of Koth, readied himself for magic. He stood before a gilt-framed mirror and straightened the lace at the neck of his blue velvet doublet. He shook back his cloak, inscribed with small arcane sigils in white silk that shone as bright upon the deep blue fabric as stars against a twilit sky. Thick fingers combed through the tight auburn curls of his beard. His reflection peered back at him skeptically, then put on a false smile. Running a hand over his burgeoning paunch, the Kothian bent to a low table beside the mirror, where a star-shaped pendant of transparent crystal sat in a nest of piled silk. Adrastus fastened it around his neck and buried the bright pendant in the lace at his throat. With a final appraising glance at his reflection, he walked to the door. All right, so with this opening here, we're getting right off the bat a name. We we're there. That's the character. Boom. And we get his his viewpoint. He's getting ready. He's standing before the mirror. He's getting dressed. He's doing all this stuff, and he's primping and making himself look good. He kind of, you get the sense that he's kind of full of himself a little bit, because um he's just putting on these false smiles, and like, why is it a false smile? Like, if that was an omniscient person the uh observing from afar, they wouldn't know, um or not an omniscient person, but an observer from afar wouldn't know it was a false smile, but he knows it's a false smile, and thus, because we're in his head, we know it's a false smile, right? And so, it's obvious that these things are important to him, and that these things. Oh, we also know he is he has something to do with magic. Readies himself for magic, so he's most likely a practitioner of magic of some sort. Um, and so he has that view of himself, that aura of himself, and he's getting ready for something, right? So all that is set up right there in that first paragraph, and it's very personal. It's very you are starting to get to know this character. Now, whether we like him or not, it's going to be a whole different thing later on. This is just setting up him. And it's a prologue too, so you got to remember that it might not be the main story. Of course, the main story is going to be about Conan, but this is going to be a character, and this character, whether or not he makes it through the prologue or not, he's either going to be involved in the story, or whatever happens to him in this prologue is going to be, um, it's going to be a something that drives the story later on. So how does that contrast with the opening paragraph we saw for Orbital? It's quite different. It's, like I said, it's personal. It's in the character. It's a character introduction. It's in the character's head, whereas the Orbital was not. And so I hope I explained both of those styles sufficiently, just to get an idea of how different approaches to different books uh, convey different things and have different purposes. They have they're approaching their craft with with those different uh, things in mind, because they have different goals and what they want to accomplish with their writing. And I think, even though this was not my cup of tea, I think she absolutely set out to do what she wanted to do with this thought experiment. Um, and even though I like this, it may not be your cup of tea, because you may not like typical sword and sorcery stuff where that Conan's going to be fighting against some sort of monster or wizard or what have you. Um, and you may not care that it would be a interesting plot or something like that, or some strange circumstances that Conan would get in would be wouldn't be your cup of tea, that it is mine. But at least with both of these authors, with both of these opening paragraphs, you immediately kind of know what you're getting into. And I think that's the point of both of those. I think that's what they both wanted to accomplish, is to show you this is what you're getting into. Um, and these are the signs that say whether you're going to enjoy these books or not right off the bat. All right. So, all right, enough babbling about this stuff. I hope I hope that was good for you guys. I hope you got something out of that, and I hope you pick up either one of these books depending upon what your tastes are as well. All right, and with all that said, please like and subscribe below if you like this video, and yeah, be good to each other. Thank you.